Hi, I'm Vareen, a curious explorer of the intricate landscape of the human mind and behaviors. And you're now listening to the Ink Thoughts podcast, where I unravel the mysteries behind the incongruous thoughts that pepper our everyday existence. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ink Thoughts podcast. Today I have another guest with me again. So let's invite him to introduce himself.
Okay, yeah, hello everyone. My name is Matthias. I'm 42 years old, from Germany, the northern part from Germany. Um, yeah, working as a data analyst, and in recent years I've been traveling quite a bit. It's one of my passions, and I think that's the reason why I'm here today.
So I actually met Matthias during my Norway trip. Yeah, and so I found throughout our conversation, I found he's quite into traveling and it sounds really interesting. And I was like, why not invite him up here and let's talk a bit about traveling then. So, yeah, you say you travel quite a bit. How often do you travel actually?
Um, it really depends. Also, I mean, depends also on at what stage of my life you look at. There was times where I have not been traveling at all, and nowadays I'm traveling more often. Um, Maybe I can give a bit like my travel history, say so. As a kid, usually I was just traveling with my parents. So we were once in a year we were traveling. Usually it was one year we went to the North Sea, and then the next year was to the Alps, and then North Sea, Alps. So it was back and forth. Um, but I wasn't too much into that kind of traveling. It's at least if I think back, I remember that I didn't like it so much. My parents wanted to hike a lot. You know, when we were in the Alps, they were walking and stuff. Probably you can't even call it hiking because we were quite young and you can't make distances with small kids.
Mhm.
I always felt like it was super exhausting and boring. And then I wanted to walk for 1 hour just to have a view. And as a kid, I didn't care about the view at all. So
Speaking of that, actually, last time someone told me like people here because like British people they do a lot of hiking and they like to bring the very young kids to hike because at the end of the day they'll just be tired and they'll just be sleeping so that the adults can do whatever they want.
yeah, might be a reason, but I think it was not the main reason for that. Um, and yeah, so when I grew older as a teenager, at some point I said I'm not traveling with my parents anymore. But then I also haven't been into traveling for a really long time. So within my twenties, I've hardly traveled. Uh, One thing was I've not really had friends who were into traveling. I think that's one of the big things that motivates you to do it. The other thing is it's quite expensive, and I was just a student. I didn't have much money, and yeah, I like to save money, or I thought like traveling wouldn't be worth the money. But it was also due to lack of an experience, and I just knew like the traveling with my parents, which I didn't like that much. So in my 20s, I didn't travel much at all. It just started when I was, I think, 30 or 31. I did my Erasmus in Italy. That was also my first time where really I've been out of the country for a really longer period of time.
Mhm.
I was half a year in, it's called Padova. It's a small city close to Venice in north of Italy. And there I saw like, okay, I really should make the best out of the situation. I'll probably not get that close to all the interesting places like Venice, Verona, Rome, and so on that soon. So at that time, I started traveling, and then really liked it. Also, I had people or met a lot of people during my Erasmus year um, with whom I could travel together. And so I didn't even, in that time, didn't even travel in Italy. I also had a short trip with a couple of guys from America to Paris. I went with the friends to Barcelona because we had an airport quite next to where I lived, and it was super cheap. You could go for 20
Mm.
euro from Italy to Barcelona. It was
Wow.
ridiculously cheap. So
I
I
don't
went.
even think I can get a train ticket with that price.
No, even like if the next city, which is 50 kilometers, even taking a taxi to my home would be more expensive. So it was a bit weird that I was in Italy and was traveling a bit in Italy, but at the same time, I was starting to go to all the places I haven't been before. Yeah, no, I really liked it. I did a lot of sightseeing, especially like all kind of in Rome Colosseum, all the churches
Mm.
and stuff like this. Um, so later on, I kept traveling. Um, Not that often, maybe one or two times a year, and it was just for a week or two. And I think so. Really, I've picked it up just when I went to Korea in was it 2016 when I was like 36 or something like this. I went there with my ex girlfriend, and I stayed for 1 year in Korea. So I don't know if you can, since I basically lived there. I don't know if you also consider that as like a travel experience.
Mm.
You get to experience a new culture, and within Korea, I was traveling quite a bit, and also I did some visa runs. So I also try to make use out of the situation that I'm in Asia, and I have short
Mm.
distances to Japan, Thailand. So I saw Thailand twice. Cambodia for a couple of days, Tokyo. Um, yeah, so that's where it got more intense again. And then just recently, at the end of 2000, let me think, was 21, like 3 years ago, our company decided that we were allowed to work from abroad. It was um, it was a measure thanks to COVID. That's a good part
Mm.
of it. My company realized that people can actually can work quite efficiently when they're not in the office. Everyone had to work from home. Yeah. And people were also starting when I'm staying at home or have to work remotely, can I not go there or can I not go there? So eventually they were then thinking of this program where quite easily you have 30 working days in a year which you can work from abroad quite easily without
Mm.
a lot of administrational stuff. And yeah, since then I have made use out of it quite a lot. So I would say in the last 3 years I've been traveling much more, or I don't know where's the cut between traveling or kind of short term living in places.
Mm.
So yeah, I think in the last 3 years or so I've been being abroad, so 3 to 4 months in a year. Yeah, I've
Mm.
combined then this program where I can work from abroad with my holidays, and yeah, I've mostly traveled in Asia, and yeah.
Mm. How do you define like short term living in a place and traveling then?
Um, I think it depends a bit on not only on the time, but also just the situation in which you're living. Um, let's say this year in March, I was in Las Palmas. That's a city on Gran Canaria.
Mm?
I don't know if you know the Canary Islands.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I don't know the audience if in Europe everyone knows Canary Islands, but Asian watches, he probably doesn't know what Canary Islands is. It's a small group of islands belonging to Spain, but which is really close
Mm.
to African
Yeah.
coast. And so you have all year long temperatures above 20 degrees. So it's a perfect thing. If you don't like the cold, the winter, you go there, you have sun, you have a sun guarantee basically, it hardly rains,
Mm.
and you have good temperatures. So I've been there 2 years ago for 2 months, and I've stayed in a co-living. And then
Oh,
this year I came back for 3.5 weeks, and I got a room in an apartment,
oh,
like a sub-rented room. I was living with two other guys, and yeah, I would consider that living.
short-term living.
Hmm? Say again?
I don't know. I was just trying to finish your sentence. So you consider that that's short-term living?
Yeah, I would say so. Just because I had kind of like a daily life there. I had to work from there,
Mm,
so I had my normal working hours. I I need to, yeah, survive. I need to go shopping, doing grocery shopping, cooking, all kind of that. And I didn't do that much sightseeing or things. You do things in the evening because you have a really good community of digital nomads there. There's always something going on, but it's more like you, for a short period of time, a couple of weeks, you put your center of life in a different place. Yeah, you do
mm,
everything else the same way. It's just different, but you need to, yeah, also, yeah, cook, buy grocery things, so like the normal day-to-day stuff.
mm,
But then I was also once in Thailand for a longer period of time. I was for 6 weeks or so, and I stayed 1 week in Bangkok, then 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks in Koh Chang. Then I was going back to Bangkok for a week, and then Koh Chang again. So in total, I spent in Koh Chang also like 3.5 weeks. This was the same period of time, but I was only staying the whole time in the hotel. I was also working a bit from
oh,
there, but not that much. I had a bit of extra hours that so I didn't need to work that much during the day. Um, yeah, but it's still, yeah, it just felt different. In the end,
mm.
I think it's more about a feeling than really saying that I lived there. Yeah,
Okay, okay, sounds interesting.
but I
Mm,
have to say, when sorry, just when I was in Las Palmas, even though I had my day to day life there, it's still a bit different because you don't get in touch too much with locals. It's mostly also digital nomads, which also are in a similar situation. So you don't necessarily experience the normal Las Palmas lifestyle from the Canary people. It's
mhm. Yeah, I remember when I went to Tenerife earlier this year. I saw quite some people like working there. Like they're just sitting in a restaurant with their beach outfit and working on the laptop.
yeah.
It looks really cool.
Well, I know that people, they post all the pictures on Instagram when they work
Mm,
at the beach and so on. I've done that also, like posting a picture and so on. But
wow.
I have to say, it's not that great. It's really maybe also it's depending on the person, but from the job that I do, it's like also like building dashboards, like data analytics. If you work on a small laptop, it's way too small to
Oh
really
yeah.
the stuff. You need a bigger screen or even like two screens. I like to have
Mm.
my own keyboard and a mouse. And the other thing is it's like freaking hot out there.
Oh yeah.
I'm not so good with the heat, so I prefer to stay inside. And um, yeah, also when people work in the Starbucks or whatever, it's,
Oh,
well, maybe for some people it's good, but it's not my type of thing. So you can't say it's like the overall goal that you have, and that's
okay.
great. It's very personal if you like it or not. So I'm not that of a huge fan of that.
But what if like you're living like doing the short term living at some other places and you don't have your usual proper setup for work? Do you
I
bring
didn't catch the first
anything
part.
along with you?
Say again. I didn't catch the first part.
So I was saying, like, what if like when you're doing the short term living at somewhere else and you don't have your usual proper setup for work? How do you deal with it?
Um, w- well, the times I've been abroad, it was okay. It's, I mean, you can still work. It's just not ideal.
Mm,
Let's say like you lose maybe 20% of your efficiency, maybe.
mm-hmm,
Um, but also, I think the company knows that if someone works from abroad, he's maybe not as productive as when he is at home. It's not only this part; it's also the part of the time difference is more
oh yeah.
of an issue. But on the other hand, it's not only all about the company all the time when it comes to like the relation between customer and sorry, employer and employee. I mean, the employer is also paying salary, which is
Mm,
also a disadvantage, but he's doing that to get the working power from the employee. And this is kind of also like something that you, as a benefit they give to you. For that, you become more loyal, or you feel
mm,
grateful. Or so it's one of the things I don't want to miss, and I really appreciate this that I'm able to work abroad. And it can be also very how can I say, like you can charge your batteries even though you're not on
mm,
vacation. You know, it's like this one week in Norway where we met. I had just 2 days of vacation, but just being in another place, then meeting so many people from all kind of the world. The hostel I've been with, it was crowded with so many people, and to get to see like the midnight sun and so on.
mm-hmm.
It was. I came home and I felt like I've been away for 2 or 3 weeks because it was just so many impressions in that thing. Um, and in the end, I just spent 2 days of holiday for that. But it
Mm-hmm.
still come with the you come back and you are kind of full of energy, so kind of thing.
Mm,
So in the end, it's I think it's even for the company, it's a good thing. Um, and then it depends also on the kind of task that you have. If it's something where I have to do a bit more like coding with Python, for
mm,
example, or so, then it doesn't matter that much. Or at the time, for example, when I was in March, it was more conceptual work that I have to think of some certain formulas, and then I just need a pen and a paper and just writing down stuff, something like this. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Okay. Um, so usually when you're traveling, what would you say is your usual approach? Like some people, I know they prefer like very budget kind of travel, so they
Mm.
try to fit in as much places that they could, or they do multiple um vacation in a year on a tighter budget so that they can do a bit more. But some people they just prefer to be like, I want to relax and it's okay to be go a bit luxurious. Yeah. So usually, what is your approach then?
Um, So yeah, this is one of the questions you sent me before, and I'm
Yeah.
giving it a bit of some thought, and it was good that you sent it beforehand because I don't know if I would be able to answer that straight away. And I figured also that um, it's not that easy to answer. It's not like that I have a specific thing.
Mm,
Maybe that's also one of the things that when you see people who travel a lot, you get the idea that traveling is the main driver in their life, and
mm,
they have a certain idea how they do it and so on. And I figured also in my life there's actually other things that determines the way that I travel. So part of my personality is determining
oh.
how I travel. For example, I don't like to spend too much money, or I like to save money.
Mm,
That's one of the things. Or another thing is that I like to save up things like holiday vacation days. So usually at the end of the year, I have a lot of vacation days left. And I'm not someone who's always eager to travel. And maybe that's something that also distinguishes me from a lot from the people who travel a lot, that they can't wait to get out of the house, or they can't wait to go somewhere else. And I do also like this, but and maybe that's something also good to hear for people who don't travel so much and don't feel bad about other people who talk about their travels. It's always for me hard again to motivate me to travel, because I get in my comfort zone at home, and traveling is always a bit of scary, new places, you haven't been there, and then there's the things of planning the traveling, which I don't like, looking for accommodation, the flights, and so on. So I usually postpone that for a really long time. But at some point, I feel like so all my vacation days are coming, and then I feel like no, I can't spend all the time at home. I have to make the use
Mm.
out of it. There's like some FOMO hitting me, fear of missing out, and that is sometimes the main driver for me to travel. That I feel like now I have the days and I should do something, and I do usually like it to travel. As sometimes you have really great experience, sometimes it's not that great. It's always like you never know, but overall I think it's a very, very good experience. um but it's not always so easy for me to motivate me, and sometimes I need this, now I have the vacation days, I have to take them, and I should make use of it. So I'm going to look up something and do it, because then otherwise I would feel even worse. Another thing that is also determining a bit the thing is when in the year I travel.
Oh,
uh, so mostly I travel at the end of the year, because of what I said, like the vacation days. But the other thing is, and that's also like my personality. That's maybe really weird for other people, but um, so when I like to save some money and have my saving goals, that I don't like to spend so much money at the beginning of the year when I haven't met my saving goals. But if I have met my saving goals, I'm much more free to travel, and I don't mind then so much to spend the money. So
okay.
if it comes to the question like, do I travel more on a budget or not? And I would say at the beginning of the year, I will always be more cost aware than at the end of it. So yeah, I don't know. It's, as I said, it's not always, oh, I want to travel, and then
Mm.
everything else is determined by that. It's just sometimes the other way around. But yeah, coming again a bit to the point, like my approach. As I said, I don't have a thing that I say I want to do it this time, or I'll do it all the time in a certain way. It's sometimes depending on, yeah, on the situation, and it has been also one thing that has been different in the past. In the past, I said when I was traveling more for 1 or 2 weeks, when I went somewhere, and usually when I go there, I look also to yeah, not to spend too much. You don't go in a hotel, rather into, I don't know, Airbnb or something
Mm.
affordable. Also depends a bit, if I've been in the past traveling a few times with my ex-girlfriend. It's also different than it's. I would rather take an Airbnb than a hostel, for example. Um, yeah, so in the early years, I tried to fit in as much as possible when I went
Mhm.
to a certain place. And I usually really packed my days really full, and very, yeah, trying to make the most out of it, so that I also don't stay too long. Let's say, yeah, especially like the time when I was in Italy. Um,
Mhm.
I was usually traveling on the weekends, because during the week we still had classes. So you didn't have so much time. And when I went to a place, I looked up before on the internet what is worth to see. So I made a list of all the things I would like to see, and then I was going there, going to that church. I was going to the next church, and church by church by church, and other things. There's a lot of churches in Italy you can visit, or other places, and I was always eager to see as much as possible, do as much as possible, and also packed in a short period of time. So at that time, when I was coming back home, like it's home in terms of Padua, where I actually stayed. After a weekend of traveling, I was totally exhausted, and I need the week to recover. Um, and but now it's I think it has changed. I'm not too much interested in sightseeing anymore. I still do that, but I feel like once I've been seeing quite a bit of things. The next thing you see is not as great as the first time you see
Mhm.
something, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of it's losing a bit um, the spark,
Mm.
and it shifted a bit for me more into this that I like to stay longer in a place, so that I also can have this idea of how it feels a bit like to live there. I know that sometimes the experience is still far away from the actual living there because
Mm-mm.
you don't get that deep into the local culture and all the things. But to be able to provide for yourself that you can survive there and all those things, take it a bit more easy. That I do some sightseeing on the weekend, for example, and then during the week I work from there. So recently, then my approach was more to stay long term in a couple more weeks than there. Don't do too much sightseeing anymore. Trying to get a bit connection to local people, getting a bit more of that.
Like from based on what you have been sharing um, throughout our conversation, it does give me a vibe like you are quite a person that prefer living in the moment. Would you say so?
I should live more in the moment. My saving habits, that is more for saving up for the future, and I think maybe it doesn't make sense to do that, and I should think I should live more in the moment, so I could improve that. I think in general, I think it's a good thing to live in the moment, not in the sense of you should live life to the fullest, like do party like crazy or taking drugs or spending all your money, but more of just being more present, something like this.
The answer is not really.
I think it's something I would like to improve, that I
Mm.
be able to live more in the moment. Yeah.
I guess a problem with most of the people nowadays is either worrying too much about the future or ruminating too much about the past.
Yeah, definitely. I've I've just recently started to read one author who is actually addressing that, and I feel like he's making a lot of sense. So I'm trying to also integrate that more in my life, which is not that easy. you know,
Yeah,
you can't just
it is
like
not easy.
switch your mindset. But I think it's a good mindset, and
Mm.
this is something I like to strive for.
Yeah. Mm. And what would you say is your most memorable experiences what you've had while you're traveling?
I think there's a ton of things that I've experienced. Sometimes maybe too much to remember. Sometimes you remember something and then you were like, oh, this was gone for in my head for a couple of years, but that was actually quite fun. Um, it's usually things, or it's a lot where you have experience which is just weird, really weird, that mostly stick in your head, or cultural differences, or um, for example, since you're from KL, yeah, and when I arrived in KL, I won't forget that, is I didn't know much about Kuala Lumpur, right? There was a office from my company, and I had some colleagues there. And I knew there was the Twin Towers, and there was the Formula One races in the past. That was basically all I knew about Malaysia. So I didn't have any kind of idea. I felt like I thought it might have some similarities to Thailand or so. I don't know. I got off the plane. I took the train to one of the main train stations. I got into
Okay.
a taxi, and the taxi driver, he was at some point he was, I don't know if I can make this sound, but he was like and he was driving like crazy, and he was opening the door, and he was spitting out of the door while he was driving.
Okay.
And it was pretty much my first experience from KL.
Oh my god, that's really bad.
But I have to say, also, like, for people watching it and doesn't know KL, that I have stayed like 3 months in total in KL, and I've never experienced that again. So I don't think it's typical at all. But sometimes it's like the first impression that you get is just the
Oh,
one that sticks in your head. Yeah, I don't know. I think you were hoping for a different story, right?
it's alright.
Yeah, but it's mostly where, yeah, you get different, where you get confused,
Mm-mm.
and because that's things that I also feel are the most valuable things that you learn also from traveling, is that cultures are different. And I think when you not have experienced that, and even when you experience that, sometimes you underestimate how different cultures can be, and that the mindset can be totally different. And you see something, and you have an interpretation based on what you're used to it or what you
Oh,
think. And then someone is telling you, no, they do it for this and that reason. And it seems really odd to you. It's really hard
yeah.
to believe. And it takes a while to understand they just think completely different. And yeah, that makes sometimes like this intercultural
Mm.
communication difficult. But on the other hand, it makes it also very interesting and exciting. So there's one story also in Korea where it was also really weird for me, and
Okay.
I didn't know what to make out of it. So I was going into a metro station. I was sitting down in the metro, and then there was this old Korean guy who was coming, sitting next to me. He was somewhere in his 60s or so, and then he started to talk to me, and but he hardly knew any English, so it was really hard to communicate. And during while he was talking to me, he was sometimes with his hand was tapping my thigh, you know,
Okay.
and I felt like this was already a bit weird.
Mm.
And at some point, he was grabbing my hand with his hand, putting my hand on my thigh, and had his hand on my hand, And I didn't really know what to make out of the situation.
Why does this sound so wrong?
But the thing is, I knew from, so my ex girlfriend is Korean, and she told me, or I also from other people I heard before, that it's not so uncommon that guys sometimes they are holding hands.
Mm.
They're not often do that, not publicly, but when they get drunk, they sometimes do that they just holding hands. It's not so uncommon. So I thought, like, okay, from a German point of view, you would think this is maybe a weirdo or whatever, or I don't know with what that is related. But I kind of knew, okay, this is not super uncommon, and I felt like, but I felt uncomfortable with that situation. But I thought, like, okay, I'm getting out of the train in just 2 stations more, and then I can just like go through that. But so the train didn't start going. We were still standing and waiting for the train to start the journey, and there were still like people coming inside the thing. And at some point, I was imagining like the picture that the two of us would give to the train.
Oh.
Just imagine like you enter that, and then they're sitting like an old Korean guy with a young European guy, and they're holding hands. And that thought, it was the point where, like, okay, no, I can't do it for two. I can't wait for the train to get there. So then I had my bag with me, so I was reaching down to my bag, was grabbing my water, and then I was drinking something, and then I was holding my phone with my hand, so he wasn't able to grab it again. And after that, I felt like, okay, that was so weird. When I talk with other people, it's like with Koreans, but also with other who has been there living for a really long time, and then everyone said, like, he was just trying to be nice.
Mm.
That's the thing. He wasn't aware that he made me uncomfortable with that.
Mm.
And he tried to be nice. So that was, for me, was also okay. Once I knew like what was this about, or so I didn't feel weird for me. And that is something that can happen whenever you are in a different culture.
Yeah.
There's something that I think is wrong, or even weird or wrong. But I mean, what is wrong is everyone has a different perspective on that.
Mm-mm.
And this is one of the really big thing that you learn when you travel. You broaden your horizon by a lot,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that, once you have experienced that, you don't want to miss that anymore. It feels like, I don't know, yeah, just great.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay. Like earlier you mentioned like you don't really like the planning part
Yeah.
for your vacation. So would you rather do it in advance or you're more spontaneous? Like of course we do have some places in mind that where you can visit. Just that, would you rather put it on like today I have to, tick all these boxes, or it's all right. I can just do it any of the days when I was there.
Um, yeah, these days I don't plan that much anymore.
Mm,
Also, I don't usually plan so much in advance. So it's my boss always says, or asks me like, here, when are you going to take vacation? And I'm like, I don't know yet. I told you before, I um keep
so
my
a very spontaneous guy.
yeah, but it's not that I don't like it when it's planned beforehand. I would appreciate it, but I don't feel like, at some point, the thing that I said before is that, I don't necessarily feel like, oh, I want to go there, and that's why I start planning. It's more like, yeah, it could be an option, but right now I feel I'm in my comfort zone. I don't really think of, I need this extra push that to get me out of it. So I don't usually then start planning traveling. So, for example, I have 30 days of holiday, in a year, and usually I keep 5 days. We can take 5 days with us, to the next year, but we have to use it until the end of March. So I used then the holidays, as you maybe can imagine, in the last week of March. So that's the way I do it. It was a time when I was, in Las Palmas. But I got sick there, and so I got sick. It was the doctor, gave me a sick leave. Yeah, for 3 days. So I got 3 days of holidays. I got back, and then I, had some talk with HR and so on. And at some point, they said like, okay, you get them back, but you have to take them until the end of June, right? And it was the start of June. So I said like, okay, I have 3 days of, holidays, and this is a thing. And I was like, okay, I don't just want to stay at home. I should kind of use it. So that's why I got the motivation to travel.
Okay. Okay.
And then, I was thinking of going to Tromsø, uh,
Mm,
in Norway, during summer, before. I had this, in my head for a couple years. I was in Tromsø, I think 5 years ago, for the Polar Night, and I
mm,
really loved the place and so on. And I thought, okay, I really want to do like the opposite, the Polar Day. Um, so I checked flights, and I saw, oh wow, there's one really cheap flight going from that Saturday to another Saturday, and I knew already the place to stay, so I wouldn't need to look up a lot of things. And they
mm.
had a room. It's a hostel, but they had a single room, and it was also quite cheap. And if I have, a good opportunity like this, then I take it. And it was so easy. So I was going there on Saturday, but the I was looking up the things the Sunday before, and was booking on Monday. So 5 days before, a flight was booking it. And when I went to Las Palmas, I was also booking it everything like a week before. And I think there's even, I remember a few more things in the past where I've really booked very short term. I told you that we can work from abroad,
Mm.
and I had the plan to do that. And I wasn't sure if I should go to. I was thinking between Cape Town and Las Palmas, and this was a time where the COVID restrictions were still quite active, and so most of Asia was not open, and
Mm.
so I was thinking back and forth, and I couldn't really decide on that. And but at some point, I heard, okay, Thailand is opening now for tourists again, and then I also booked within 1 or 2 weeks or so. Um,
Okay.
yeah, sometimes it seems like I'm very spontaneous and I can make decisions
Yeah.
very fast, but it's
But because it's because of you pushing it to the last minute.
yeah, because I can't decide before, I can't like I'm doing this and then I go that because I can't make a decision and then I just let it go and at some point I have to, you know. Um, yeah, so but also when I'm in a certain place, it can be really spontaneous. At the end of 2022, I was also combining some days where I wanted to work with vacation days, and my overall idea was to spend 2 months in Asia. And my first destination was Tokyo, from where I wanted to work, and I thought like I'm gonna work for 3 or 4 weeks, and I wanted to go to um, Seoul for a couple of days, meet a friend in Brunei, and the rest was actually still in the open. So I haven't really decided. When I went to Tokyo, I wasn't really sure like where actually I'm gonna end up. At some point, I booked a flight back home to Germany from Phuket. So
Oh.
I know where I need to go, but I think in between I wasn't still sure where to go, and I ended up staying longer in Tokyo than before. Than I actually planned. I think a bit more than 4 weeks. Um, but I booked the hostel for the first 4 weeks, I think. And then, but later on, it got too expensive. And then I booked hotels. And I couldn't decide like when I wanted to go to Seoul. But I had already a plan when I have to go to Brunei because my friend only had time to
Mm.
certain days. So that was clear. But then I was like, oh, should I stay 1 day more in Tokyo or should I stay? But then I have it's 1 day less in Seoul and how many days and um, so then I still have no accommodation, or I book something and then later I cancel and then rebook. At that time, I was also spending a lot of time of just like planning things
Mm.
when I'm there. But it was also a time where I had the time because when you go there for such a long period of time, you don't have to do something special every day or
Mm. Yeah.
you're not in a hurry. And then it's still a waste of time because I spent a lot of time planning. Yeah, but I changed my plans during that trip so many times about like when to go there. It's very spontaneous, and I'm not saying that it was coming from a good place. Maybe it was also like a lot of FOMO, and it would be better to make the plans more solid or earlier. Yeah, but I think in the end it depends on the person also what you prefer and yeah.
Mm. There's the uncertainty, like, yeah, like you already know you're going to spend 2 months in Asia, but you're not sure when you're going to the next place and stuff. There's the uncertainty, makes you feel anxious, or it's alright for you.
No, but I feel like sometimes I want to make the best out of it, or I want to spend, especially like the thing, for example, with staying in Tokyo or spending time in Seoul. I wanted to stay a couple of days in Seoul, and I felt like, oh, I actually want to stay a whole weekend there, because I was never really going out. I stayed for 1 year in Korea, and I've never really been going out in a club or so in Seoul, and I felt like, okay, maybe I should do this. I want to spend the weekend in Seoul. But then on the other hand, there was this, the World Cup was going on, and then Japan was playing against Germany. And I thought, oh, it would be really great, if I would stay in Japan while Japan is playing against Germany, and then you're like, I would like to do this and I would like to do that and so on. And that's more annoying, that, that if you can't make a decision, well, sometimes, yeah, if you plan things ahead and it's clear where you go, sure, I think I get sometimes a bit anxiety because I don't know where I go when, and then the problem is more the question, if I haven't booked something yet, then will I find something to book?
Ah,
It's usually not a problem to find something, but something that is affordable,
mm,
right? So especially in Tokyo, there was some days where it was super expensive, and so yeah, then sometimes I was staying in a hotel just for one night, and then I was switching the hotel, just because otherwise it would have been too expensive.
mm.
And that's annoying. And I got sick at the time, and I had to, with all my luggage, I had to go in the metro and moving from one to another, and that wasn't great. And yeah, also the longer you wait, the more expensive the
Yeah,
flights
it
get.
is.
I was more anxious than sometimes about the money and that. And that's again the part where I said sometimes um, my approaches and so on is also determined more from my personality and other drivers than the thing of just traveling. And
Okay. Like I believe like both of us agree like when you travel to some new places and trying to learn a bit more about the culture is a very nice thing. Um, is there any like tips or advices that about how to prepare yourself mentally or even practically while you do so?
to learn more about the culture,
Yeah. So to yeah, for example, maybe getting to know the locals or trying to fit in a bit in the culture, stuff like this.
I mean, I think it wouldn't harm if you would read something before. There's tons of
Mm,
YouTube videos where people share their experiences in a certain country, and I always feel that, well, every person makes his own experiences, and not everyone is also even capable of mm, maybe understanding the culture, or hasn't had like the proper insight, or they have met with some more open-minded people who are not representative of the real culture. Depends on how much time they spend. I felt like, so my professor back at university, and she was traveling and talking about her travels and other cultures. She was there for 2 weeks. I felt more, she got more her stereotypes, how you say, confirmed than
mm,
anything else. It's not really like a deeper insight. There's a lot of stereotypes for every culture.
yeah,
It's usually a truth in there to a certain degree, but also the reason why is that the case. Or so it's something. It's different. Uh, so it can make sense to read up something before, or
mm,
to watch some videos. Always be a bit careful, or don't take it for granted.
yeah, be
Um,
a bit more sensitive.
yeah, and I think it does not come so much to preparing before. It's more about a lot the mindset, if that you keep an open mind,
Mm,
and also being more curious, and um, not always trying to find an explanation for that right away, or judge the things that happens. For example, the thing that happened with me with the guy in the metro,
Mm.
you know, yeah, of course it made me feel weird in that moment, but I think, okay, I'm in a different country and so on, and sure, he could have been also a bit more considerate, thinking, okay, but you know, he's an old guy and he's used to that kind of living, and then that's yeah, I respect that, and that's fine, you know. And for me, then it's also it's nice to, even if bad things happen, it's always like a good story to tell afterwards, right?
True, true.
Getting a few good laughs out of that. In terms of meeting people or local, I mean, that's maybe a bit weird of advice. But what I experience, what's really good, is when you date. Uh, yeah. In the end, I mean, if you get to know people and you have a friend or so, you maybe you go out in the evening, whatever, and they explain a bit something or so. But if you stay for a longer period of time somewhere and you're dating someone for time, you just got so much closer into the culture. You know, it's
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I had my girlfriends were also coming from different cultures. Not because I was dating them when I was traveling. I met them, not all of them, but I met them mostly in Germany. And this is also the thing that I said before. There's a lot of cultural conflicts and
Mm.
misunderstandings, but you learn also a lot from that. And um, yeah, so I know it's not for everyone. You know, it's maybe
Yeah.
it's a weird concept, and um,
And especially if you're telling this to someone with Asian mindset, it feels so weird because like dating isn't such a straightforward thing in I guess in Asian mindset. Yeah, like we don't openly talk about it that much.
okay.
Yeah, so like I'll say probably we prefer having things a bit confirmed before we tell people or show it to the people around us. So uh, it is slightly more uncommon when people consider that a date when they first met or something.
So I didn't get that. Is it weird to talk about it, or that you think it's not so common that the dating part, or
Yeah, so maybe people met new people, but they don't straight away consider that as a date.
yeah? Well, that does not match so much with my experience also in Asia.
Seriously. Okay, maybe I don't know, maybe I have a more limiting belief in.
Yeah, so especially in Malaysia, I so my last girlfriend is from Malaysia, and this is
Mhm.
where we met. We started dating, and I was just there for a couple of days, or no, actually, I was about to leave the next day, but I don't know, because I really liked her and so on. We get along, and so I extended my stay a bit longer, and then I extended it a few times more, and I went back to Germany, and we keep in touch, and so on. And I went back, and so on. But it was not in the beginning clear that it will stay for that long. Um,
Mm.
but I can just tell from that experience, I got a really good insights on that. You know, I met friends. I was all
Mm.
the time. I was among people from Malaysia. I hardly have been with any expats or Germans
Mm.
or any or so. Um, that is what I mean, because I was not working. I think that the biggest deep dive into a culture when you stay there is when you work and all your colleagues are locals, and because then the day-to-day life you have to really to adapt to all the things and more to that. Yeah, but other than that, so when we were out, we met friends and so on. It was just locals. I was among all locals all the time, so
Yeah.
that's why.
Yeah, I guess when you manage to get to know someone who is local, then you get to expand that for a bit, then you get to experience a bit more about the culture and a bit deeper as well.
Yeah, yeah. And because you are also with someone where you have a closer connection with, and you see also like the cultural differences. It's what I said before when I had also even my ex-girlfriends that I met here in Germany. You have we had a lot of issues communicating and then understanding each other, but by that you have a lot of conflicts. But through those conflicts, you just understand in the end so much more about the culture.
Mm-hmm.
There's things you're sometimes not even aware of. You go to a country and you're fine with everyone, but you're not in a, you say, you're just like maybe on a vacation mood or people treat you different. But when you live with someone, it's a whole different story. And I don't know. That's a lot of things I've learned from that. But yeah,
And that is a very interesting
well,
advice.
I told you before. Maybe you find some things weird. One thing
No, it's not weird. It's not weird. It's interesting. Yeah, just like thinking from a different perspective. Okay.
that I totally understand when people think it's very scary to travel, and I travel a lot just by myself solo. It's more because I don't have anyone really to travel with, and the part of not getting into touch with other people and being lonely somewhere in a place you don't know and so on, that can be really scary. And it's even for someone who's traveling a lot, it doesn't get any better. So I always have to push myself. But I think it's getting out of his comfort zone is always worth it in the end. So you get more back than you have to invest in that. And so I can just encourage like everyone to do it who is not feeling so sure about travel. I think it's a great experience, and then there's also so many different kind of traveling that you can do, and there's things maybe that it's not your cup of tea, and you have maybe to figure out what's your cup of tea. You like to be on your own, or maybe if you're a bit scared of that, there are travels where you can join a group, and you can join a group who is just meditating for 1 week, but you can also join a group who is climbing 3 mountains during that time. So I think there's always something out there that could suit one.
Okay.
Just
So
about like daring and trying and exploring. Just also maybe a bit trial and error.
Yeah, just like expand your life experiences, give it a try.
Yeah.
There's no harm trying something new all the time, right? I guess that's it for this episode today. Thank you very much for your sharing, and hope
Thanks for having
the
me.
audience hope the audience enjoyed it. And if you guys enjoyed it, feel free to share it with your friends and family. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed it, do like and share it with your friends and family, and drop me a comment on YouTube. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave me a review. If you're on Spotify, please rate my show. Alternatively, any questions or feedback, feel free to email me at hello@inkthoughts.com or send me a private message on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter with the username of InkThoughtspod. Thanks again and catch you all next week.